Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to call the meeting to order and acknowledge that we are in Treaty 1 of the door. I'll start again. I'd like to call the meeting to order and acknowledge that we are in Treaty 1 territory, the home and traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Ojibwe, Inuit, Cree, and Dakota peoples, and in the national homeland of the Red River Métis. Our drinking water comes from Shoal Lake First Nation in Treaty 3 territory. My name is Brent McIntyre, and I'll be chairing the panel today. To my left is Gisela Rempel, and she's a panel member, and to her left is Richard Whitebread, also a panel member. Our secretary today is Jason Robertson, and our assessor for the hearing is Matthew Harlan. To the Zoom participants of the hearing, please note you are placed in the waiting room until your property is called upon. When it is your turn, you will be admitted into the meeting. Kindly follow along on the City of Winnipeg's Boardroom YouTube channel for the hearing process. Once the host admits you into the hearing, please close or mute your YouTube player. You will then be permitted to speak with respect to your property. Once your hearing has concluded, you can leave the meeting. We will be hearing applications for revision of the assessment rule in accordance with the Municipal Assessment Act. The matters for which revision is requested have been described in each application, and we will limit discussion to those matters. The statements that are made at this hearing are sworn testimony, and anyone speaking to the matters must be sworn in. Be advised that comparisons of assessments of properties are not considered evidence of market value by the Board of Revision. The Board of Revision is appointed annually by Council and is independent of it in the City Administration. It makes its decisions on the basis of the evidence provided at this hearing and issues a written order that will be mailed to all parties as soon as possible. Please note that the board's decisions with respect to an application may be appealed to the Manitoba Municipal Board if the matter pertains to assessed value or classification, or to the Court of Queen's Bench if the matter pertains to the application of exemptions from taxation. Should you wish to appeal, information on how to do so will be included with the board's order. With respect to the hearing process, I will confirm the points of appeal with your property to be addressed with each applicant following the swearing in. We will then have the assessor's testimony followed by questions that the applicant may have, and then the applicant's testimony followed by questions. Each side will have an opportunity to summarize if they wish. Once all the evidence about an application has been brought forward, the applicant may leave. The process will repeat for each item on the docket today. The session will close after all the applications have been heard, and the board will deliberate in private and make its decisions. You will receive the board's decision by registered mail as soon as possible. As information, all public hearings are live streamed, recorded, and will be part of the public record. We will be hearing items 1 through 7 on our docket today. Mr. Robertson, can you please affirm the assessor and the applicant's testimony? Thank you.
Mr. Assessor, please state your full name.
Matthew Harling.
Do you affirm that the evidence you are about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Mr. Applicant, please state your full name. Rod Slaughter. Do you affirm that the evidence you are about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Yes. Thank you. You may be seated.
Thank you very much. The first item on the docket is 5 Allendine Road, and to both parties, is there any preliminary issues on this one? Right.
I believe so, no. No, there's no preliminary issues.
Okay, Matthew, you can start your presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The roll number is 070-229-23000. And again, the address is 5 Allendine Road. The owner is the Exchange Income Corporation. The 2023 assessed value based on a reference date of April 1st, 2021 is $394,000. Some information about the property. The property type is a vacant industrial parcel of land. It is zoned for M2 manufacturing, and the land area is 33,620 square feet. Go to page 2 of my brief, you'll just see a photo of the subject property and where its location is on Allendine Road, as well as the outline of the parcel itself. Page 3 of my brief is another photo of the subject property. It's just a bit zoomed out so you can kind of see where it is in relation to Allendine Road and Ferry Road and Sargent Avenue, which is just adjacent above north of the subject property. This property would be close relation to the airport as well. So, page 4 of my brief, you'll just see some zoning information. Again, this property is zoned M2 for manufacturing general, and just a brief description of typically what can be developed on M2 land. Page 5 of my brief just gives me the valuation summary of the subject property. It is based on land value, so we are just assessing land. There are no additional buildings or structures on this subject. And below my brief on page 5, it sees the subject sale history of the property. There are no recent sales on this particular parcel. Page 6 of my brief, you'll see a list of my land sale comparables, as well as the breakdown of the subject property. Again, the subject property is 33,620 square feet, or roughly 0.771 acres. Again, it is zoned for M2 manufacturing. And we are using a land rate of $11.72 a square foot for the $394,000. If you look at my comparables 1 through 4, my comparables range in size of 16,337 square feet up to 62,949 square feet. They range from similar zoning from M1 to M2 to as well as in a mixed use. Below that, you'll just see some information regarding the influences these properties have, such as depending on if they're in heavy traffic area, there's whether influences would be affected on the land, such as external corners or heavy traffic, for example. And if you look further below, you'll see the land sale dates. They range from May 10th, 2017 up to March 18th, 2021. And the land rates range from roughly $9.13 a square foot to $17.94 a square foot. So these comparables would come with, which we were within a range of how much of the land rate, the model land rate we were applying. Now, page 7 of my brief, you'll actually see some photos of the land sale comparables. The first one being located on 198 McPhillips Street. You'll see the parcel there, how pretty it is, and how it's shaped, slightly irregular shaped. Again, this one's slightly larger than the subject. Comparable 2, you'll just see another my second subject or second comparable. This is located in St. James Avenue, and you'll just see the land of the parcel. This one's closer in size to the subject at 31,000 square feet. The next page, or page 8 of my brief, you'll just see comparable 3. This comparable is located on Niagara Road, which would be closer to Lagimonia Boulevard. And you'll see this is a slightly irregular shaped. And comparable 4 of my brief, you'll just see on our comparable 4 at the bottom, you'll see this is my comparable 4, which is located on Jarvis Avenue, 16,000 square feet, slightly smaller than the subject. Sold in 2018 for $14.38 a square foot. And you'll see where that is situated, and as well as the shape of the subject property. These from when I get able to research, these comparables aren't serviced, so which would be similar to the subject property, which isn't serviced. Page 9 of my brief, again, you'll just see some classification liability information regarding the which gives you a breakdown of, again, the area and the land rate, or the land value we were applying to the subject property. And page 10 through 11 are just some municipal assessment access certs. That is my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. And Rod, any questions?
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chairman. Hi, Matthew. Hope you're doing well.
Yeah, you too.
I had on page 2 of your evidence, page 3. You have a good aerial photo, and you mentioned that you did 2, one kind of close up, and then you backed out, which I think is quite helpful. And so from that photo, you'd agree that the subject property is located off Ellendun, which is essentially just an ancillary road, kind of access for the industrial buildings in that proximity. But yes, it's not on a major road like Sargent. It's actually hidden from Sargent behind other buildings. Is that correct?
Yes, it would be behind Sargent. Yeah. Yes, I would disagree with that. Yes.
So when we look at your comparisons on page 6,
I think what is also very helpful, and you brought this up, is the land influences. The very first comparison you have there, 198 McPhillips, it's a heavy traffic, it's zoned MMU, which is for more flexible sort of commercial uses. Great frontage on McPhillips. Would you agree that that has better visibility than the subject property?
Yes, I don't dispute that, yes.
And similarly, of course, 1530 St. James Street, that's quite a high traffic area, commercial industrial mix, greater visibility, I guess, frontage on St. James.
Yeah, correct. Yes, that is. We have better visibility. Yes.
Okay. Third one on Niagara. This is really, it's Niagara, but that's kind of the service road for Fermor. So this property actually has great frontage along Fermor, or visibility at least. Do you agree?
It has better visibility. Yes, I don't disagree. Yes.
Okay. And then the last is on Jarvis, I think. Typically more comparable. I've looked into the sale because that stands out as a higher per square foot sale price than I'm used to in that area, but I have nothing else to add. But generally, 3 to 4 comparisons, you'd agree, have a superior location than subject.
Yes, I mean, in terms of visibility, I don't disagree. Yes.
Yeah. Okay, that's great. I think that's all my questions. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. Gisela, any questions?
I'm just wondering how long this property has been vacant.
To my knowledge, I mean, as you can see in kind of the photo, it's just being used for storage. So as far as I can tell, or as I was able to find, it hasn't had a building on it in quite some time. If to be honest with you, I don't think it's ever had a building on it that I was able to find. So.
Okay. And I'm also wondering if you have a date for the views of the comparable properties.
Oh yes, these would be well, for example, if you look at comparable to, there actually is a building on that one at St. James. So this one would have been taken closer to when the sale was around 2017, 2018. So the first one was more recent, so that would have been more of a 2021 sale image. And then I guess comparables 4 and 5. 4 would have been slightly older as it's a 2018 sale. And comparable 3 would have been 2018. Or actually, I guess they're both 2018. Yeah, so they would have been taken around the times of when the sale sold. Yes. So
Thank you.
Thank you, Richard.
Just wondering how the model factors in size of property. You have 2 comparable size properties, and then you have 2 larger properties, and this is a model price. I would take it that you have an 1172.
correct. Yes.
Yes. So how do you factor in the large versus small size? Can you comment?
Well, basically, when it comes to our land rates or model rates we're used for, in this case, we look at, we're not just looking at, we're looking at the kind of sales as a whole. Obviously, we try to find sales as close to the subject property, but as you've seen, I've shown some larger and some smaller. You're not going to always find sales that are exactly the same size, but typically it's kind of subjective in the sense that when we're looking at land sales, we're going to look at as a whole, and we'll try to find sales of similar, location, size, shape, things like that. So it's, again, we're just looking at actual sales in the market. So, so that's how when it comes to the model, we're looking at kind of a lot of sales, looking at sales as a whole that are similar in terms of, shape, size, location. Obviously there's not going to be, perfect sales every time. So, we're just we're looking at the sales in general, I guess, if you will.
So Matthew, how many properties would be included in that sample size, not just these 4?
Oh yes, there would definitely be more than that. I mean, I'll be honest with you, I don't have an exact figure of how many would be, unfortunately.
But it could be tens, it could be hundreds, you don't know.
Yeah, it depends too. Obviously, we're trying to base it on a reference date of what, for example, 2021, we would try to find sales close to that date. In that range of what they're selling for is what we kind of would use to determine our rate we would apply. So.
Thank you. No further questions.
Thank you. Just one quick one, Matthew. If you go to page 2 on the subject property, is there access to Allendine Road?
Well, if you look on page 3 of my brief, you can get access to Allendine Road off of Sargent, and there's Ferry Road there. If you can kind of see on page 3 of the brief, you kind of see a more.
Yes, I can see that.
So that's the one where you would be able to get access. Like as Mr. Slaughter was saying, yeah, it's essentially it's behind these two properties here, this parking lot and this property here. So it does have access, but you're right, the visibility wouldn't be as high as on Sargent, for example.
Okay, thank you. That was my only question. Rob, do you want to make your presentation?
Yeah. If you could please refer to the direct evidence from Office Group, 5 Allen Dine, and Mr. Harling had gone through the description of the property very well. There's a lot of preamble here, so I'm going to skip past and ask the panel to refer to page 6 first. And that's the overhead map. And I think it's important, as was brought out in the questioning, to understand the location of the subject and its access and visibility. So Sargent is the main thoroughfare in the area, and you would turn down south on Ferry to reach Allendine Road, which is really just a service road. And so it's just a small road to access Standard Aero and Magellan Aerospace and Exchange Income Group. Those are the 3 main occupants in that area. The subject property then is accessible off Allendine, but of course it has very limited visibility. It's really kind of behind the main properties in Sargent. It's adjacent to the hangar at 1 hangar line. That's the property just to the west. And it's owned by the same party. So these were purchased in 2008 by Exchange Income Group. And to answer your question about how long it's been vacant since prior to that, but they purchased it simply for vacant land storage. And that's what it remains as today. So I have a photo. I was over the property again recently, and there's a photograph from Allendine. You can see Allendine is it's really just an ancillary road. That's Allendine on the left. So, and to Mr. Harley's point, it's rather difficult to hone in when you're trying to look at sales that are close to the reference date of similar type properties. There's so many factors. And like Mr. Harling, I tried to focus in on industrial uses of general size. Sometimes you can't find things in that area. There isn't a heck of a lot in the industrial part of St. James that's sold in recent years. So unfortunately, we have to look elsewhere. But I feel that as long as the advantage of location or the factors that influence the location are fairly similar, we should be okay. So the largest thing I think to consider with the subject property is exactly what I mentioned. It's location as far as main traffic flows. It's more of a rearage site. And when we look at the 4 comparisons that Altus Group has summarized on page 9, you'll see a difference between comparisons 1, 3, and 4 and number 2. And really the difference is 1, 3, and 4 are more akin to the sort of location like subject property. They're off of a main street, whereas number 2 is actually Mr. Harling's comparison as well on St. James Street. And you see the difference, I think, and that's why I included that sale, because I wanted to show the difference between sort of the high visibility locations and the lower visibility locations. The higher visibility locations are often going to be purchased for development, like 1530 St. James. It is improved today with a retail, it's kind of an auto service location, retail, industrial. And it's typically for that reason, because of the development potential, going to command a higher price. So looking at the other 3, 43 Stapleton, I think is a very interesting comparison. And if you follow on page 10, there's a overhead map of where the property is located and a photograph. It's a paved parking lot, actually a little superior to the subject in that way. Paved for parking, has good access and frontage, service. But it's similar to the subject, it's off of the main road. The main road in this case is Nairn. All in all, I'd say this is actually superior to the subject property, and it was purchased in 2019 for $8.99 a square foot. There was a question asked about size, and I think that's a great question. And the way that I usually address that question is, all other things being equal, we should see some adjustment in the per square foot value for size, a reduction in per square foot for larger size, and an increase for smaller size. But again, the key point is all of the things being equal. So in this case, we have a slightly superior site. It is slightly larger. The net effect in my mind is the 2 factors basically balance out. The next comparison is the aforementioned 1530 St. James. I've talked about that one. You can see the photograph of the improvement today on page 11. The third comparison is on 1474 Wall Street. It's actually a good property as far as access and visibility. It's on Wall and Richard. It's a corner site. It is more akin to the subject in its improvement with fencing and graveling, and was purchased in 2017 for $6.86 a square foot. And the last comparison, oops, I'm sorry. The last comparison is 274 Jarvis. So I mentioned that the assessor's comparison on Jarvis Avenue, and I've looked at many of the properties that sell on Jarvis, and I don't have anything to say about it. I tried to do some research. I couldn't find anything about the sale, but it struck me as a little high per square foot at $14 a square foot for this area. This is more akin to the sort of sales I see in that Jarvis area. And this is a property with frontage on 3 sides. It was actually a warehouse previously. You may have heard about this in the news. It unfortunately caught fire just at the top of the pandemic. And it was the home to many artists and musicians. And unfortunately, they lost a lot. That was kind of a bad situation. But anyway, the site's since been raised, and it's a good development site. And a purchaser came and bought the property in October 2020 for $6.21 a square foot. So I think, you know, we have a good set of comparisons from the city and ourselves. And I think really the factor we need to consider is the location, not being on the highly visible thoroughfare. And in my mind, the evidence suggests that we will see a lower value with that characteristic. And so in summary, on page 15, I suggest that when we have our range that I mentioned was 661 to 899 square foot, I think the subject would be at the higher end of that range for different reasons, but no higher than. And I mentioned before that I think actually 43 Stapleton would probably be all in all a slightly superior site. So I think $9 is our ceiling, and that is exactly what I've applied to the subject property, $9 a square foot. And the resulting value is not drastically different than what the city had, but important to the owner, of $303,000. The last piece of evidence, Mr. Chairman, I have some reports here on industrial development, and I'm not going to go into this now, but what they're suggesting is that we've got 2 factors happening in the market through the pandemic. One is generally, you know, land has held well. The values haven't gone down like we would have seen for other types of assets. But one of the factors that is hindering volume sales and possibly the quantum of sale or the price for sales is the fact that construction costs have been escalating so much. And this is becoming a bit of a concern when it comes to development of industrial, particularly sites. And so the last page is an excerpt from the Johnson report. And I really recommend a grain of salt when we look at this sort of data, because it's based on the sales that have been investigated by the author, and you can have widely varying results. But the point is that if you take a look at 2017, this is the very last page of the evidence. If you take a look at the average sale price across the city in 2017 versus 2020, and the reason I go to the average overall is because you have a bit more volume, so you don't have these massive variances. But the average sale price hasn't changed very much. And it's in keeping with what I just mentioned. We have competing factors through the pandemic on the value of industrial land. So we had an average in 2017 of 871 square foot. And that average in 2020 is 883 a square foot. If we hone in on St. James, the average in 2020 is 549 a square foot. I don't give much weight to that because, as I say, there isn't many industrial sales in St. James. So that could be completely skewed. But in conclusion, I ask the board to consider $9 a square foot for the subject property, and that completes my presentation.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Matthew, do you have any questions?
I think I'm good. Thank you.
Gisela?
I'm good, thank you.
Richard?
Nothing, thanks.
I have just one, and I know we don't compare assessments, but when you referred to the 2020 roll and the original text, I'm trying to find it.
I think on page 15.
So on page 15, you had an April 1st, 2018 land value of 302,000, correct? Now I saw a different number for the same valuation date under land value. then that would be page 9. Indicating the April 1st, 2018 land value was 318.
Check that right away.
It's just a clarification.
Yeah, no, that's a good point though, because my point is that, well, I'll explain this in a moment. Let me check first on that value. Mr. Harley, do you happen to have the 2020 value of the property? Sorry, it'll take me a minute to find it on our.
Yeah, I could quickly check. Just give me a second here. 29. Sorry, just bear with me 1 second here. 3. Okay, it's right here. 20 would have been the 2020 value would have been $318,000.
Oh, that's 318. Okay. Thank you. So yeah, we're a bit lower than that. Now, I personally think, Mr. Chairman, that it's not inappropriate to talk about the subject property's previous values. Particularly, I know there's a caution there, but particularly when an agreement has been made, let's say between the parties, the board decided. Now, that doesn't mean somebody can have a change of opinion, but what I would hope is that there's a reason for the change of opinion. You know, if something drastically changes, that it's a different set of evidence or a factor change of the property or something. But otherwise, I think it's fair to consider that. The caution I have here is that this was never heard. That's why I couldn't find it. It was never appealed in 2020.
Okay.
So.
But the reality is when you enter into a 15-1 agreement, there is no supporting documentation that the board has.
That's correct. Right. Yeah.
It's just the number.
It's just so you might speak to the total value, but you know, if you had an income approach, for example, it's very inappropriate to say this implies an $8 rent or something. Nobody agreed to that. Yeah, it's a final value. So fair comment.
Okay, that was my only question. And that concludes this property. The next one is 29 Talendine Road. Again, any preliminary issues on this one? Okay, just let me get there. Okay, Matthew, can proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The roll number is 070-228-82000. The address is 29 Allendine Road, and the owner is Standard Aero Limited. The 2023 assessment, based on a reference date of April 1st, 2021, is $292,000. Some property description information about the subject. This property is a vacant industrial parcel of land. It is zoned M2 manufacturing. And it is the land area of the subject is 45,518 square feet. If you go to page 2 of my brief, you'll just see a photo of the subject property. Now, this property is actually, just to give a little bit of information, it's directly south of the previous property. Well, it would be it would be about south of the property, as a matter of fact, actually, yes. So now this property, it doesn't have any access. If you look further at the right of the photo, you'll see Ferry Road. So there is some restricted access to get to this property, because you'll see above Ferry Road, there's a little box there. That's a different parcel of land. So and there is a pathway to get to this the parcel. If you kind of see it, it's more like a little dirt road, but it doesn't have access in that sense. So I just wanted to point that out. Again, below on page 2, you'll see some zoning information. This is again zone M2 manufacturing general, and just a brief description of what that entails. Page 3 of my brief, you'll just see the cost valuation, sorry, the valuation summary. Again, this property is just valued on its vacant land. And there are no current sales. There were no recent sales on the subject. Page 4 of my brief, you'll just see some information regarding the subject and my comparable sales for this, so the comparable sales. Again, the subject is 45,518 square feet. It is zoned for M2. And again, two things I would like to mention is, or one thing I like to mention is the Cinder land influences. We have restrictions and landlocked. So those are two influences that we have acknowledged based on the fact that, as I stated, that it is having landlocked essentially. And just to kind of go for a little bit further, I'd like to know if you look further down my brief, you'll see under land notes, you'll see classification liability, and then you'll see adjustment. So we have actually applied a 40% adjustment initially overall, like the initial value of the 292. We've applied a 40% adjustment before that to account for those issues, such as the restrictions in the landlocked. So as you can see here, it's that we've already reduced the value by $194,673. So I just want to know even though it is landlocked, we are acknowledging that with that adjustment we have applied. Now going to my comparables, my comparables range in size from 41,873 square feet to 62,000 square feet, fairly close to the subject size. Again, they're very similar in zoning, M1 and M3, M1 through M3. And again, below that, you'll just see some land influences. These sales range in date sale from January 17th, 2019, or sorry, January 9th, 2018 up to October 21st, 2020. And the sale price per square foot range in sale from $6.21 square foot up to $9.13 square foot. Again, the subject is $6.42 square foot. So it's falls within that range. Now, page 5 of my brief, you'll see some photos of the subject properties, or the comparables, I should say, sorry. Now, comparable 1, this is off of actually Niagara Road. So it's actually very close to one of my other comparables that we had mentioned in the previous property. This one here, 1329, it's not landlocked, but it does have access to the front, as you can see there. It doesn't have access to the back, but it's very similar in terms of shape to the subject's size. And again, very, very close and very, very close in size as well. And this one sold in comparable sale 2. This is on Provencher Boulevard. So again, this one is very close in size to the subject. This one's a bit of a irregular shape, as you can see the parcel outline. It's a bit irregular shaped. Again, and this one sold for around $7.48 square foot in 2019. Again, very similar in size. And comparable 3, we've actually we've spoken to Mr. Slaughter had mentioned, and he is one of the comparables he used before. This one was on Jarvis. Again, very similar in size to the subject. This one sold in 2020 for $6.21 square foot. And then comparable 4, this was one I had mentioned my previous property, again, on Niagara Road, 62,000 square feet, slightly larger than the subject. Again, this one sold in 2018 for around $9.13 a square foot. And page 8 of my brief, again, just shows information about, again, just the land value in the current area. And page 9 is just some municipal assessment excerpt information. That is my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Rod, any questions?
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. So Mr. Harlingan, I think you explained this, but the subject property is similar to the last property. It's quite a ways off of any major road. It's really at the, kind of behind other improvements. Correct?
Yes, that is correct. Yes, as I mentioned. Yeah.
And in addition, it is landlocked. So you have 2 factors.
Yes, that is correct. Yes.
Okay. And you mentioned that of the 4 comparisons shown in your evidence on page 4, none of those comparisons are landlocked.
None of these would be no.
Comparison 1 is a new comparison, 1329 Niagara. And in your picture on page 5, you kind of show the site itself, but it's actually located directly behind the improved property at 1329 Niagara. Is that correct?
I believe that is correct. Yes.
And you're aware it was purchased by the same owner. The owner of 1329 actually purchased this as additional land.
That I was unaware of. No.
Okay, thanks. So if I understand correctly, the subject property had, and I think this is very good for the assessment department to recognize, they had adjusted the value downward by 40% to account for the landlocked nature.
That is correct. Yes.
Yeah, and is that based on any evidence or is that kind of a model? You know, just wondering where they get 40 from.
Yeah, I wouldn't, it's just, again, kind of subjective. We look at the site and it's not like something, I mean, it is something we would put into the model, we would count for. So yeah, I guess you would say it is something we would account for within the model, but yes, we would apply like an influence. So yes.
Okay. So the resulting value is $6.42 a square foot, which implies that if it weren't for the adjustment, the value would have been about $10.75 a square foot. Is that correct?
Based on the additional there that we had taken off, yes.
And you'd agree that, I mean, all we've done is adjust for the landlocked nature. This is still kind of a rearage site. Would you agree that this then would have sat higher than any of your comparisons in assessment, if not for just the landlocked adjustment, 1075 a square foot?
Yes, I guess I wouldn't dispute that. Yes, so.
Okay. And you are aware that I believe it was about 4 months ago, the owner and the city had entered an agreement on the subject property for the 2020 assessment, the April 2018 value. You're aware of that?
I'm not putting any weight into what previous information was that we're talking about.
That. But you are aware that the agreement between those parties was at $5 a square foot. Whether or not,
I'll be, as I said, I didn't look into that, so I don't know the specifics of that. So I was the assessor with that. So.
No, that's fair enough. Thank you, Sir Owen. That's all my questions.
Thank you very much. Giselle?
No questions?
Richard?
Nothing, thanks.
Just have one question, Matthew.
Yes.
If you go to your picture of the subject on page 2.
Yes.
It looks like there's access to the subject property off of the end of Ferry Road or whatever that lane is.
Yeah, like as I said, there isn't it's not like it's completely, you can't access it all, but it's not really, you kind of have to cross through another property essentially to get access to it. So, you know, it's not technically physically landlocked in a sense, but in the sense that that's like I've actually driven to this property before actually. So it is accessible, but again, as I said, you have to access another property to get through it. So that's where we would consider it landlocked essentially. So
correct me if I'm wrong, but is the adjoining property owned the same ownership?
No, that's a different owner.
Different owner. Yeah. Okay, thank you. That was my only question. And that concludes 29 Allen Drive. And the next one is sorry. It's been a long week.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, Rod, go ahead.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. So, yeah, just continuing on that conversation about the subject property itself. So to give a little context, it's located at the back of the area that we discussed, which is kind of the properties improved by Standard Aero, Exchange Income Corp, and Magellan Aerospace. And it's also behind, from the other side of Ellis, it's behind the St. James, I think it's the St. James Civic Center. So, Mr. Chairman, to your question, exactly as Mr. Harwood said, the properties from which you could access this physically are actually owned by different parties, both from the south and the north. And that's why we consider this legally a landlocked property, which would, in our mind, and I think from the city's position too, be a factor when you're applying market value. So historically, this was improved with a kind of an old maintenance shed that Standard Aero had, and they've since demolished the shed just about a year ago. And at that time, a supplementary was issued, and there was negotiations between the city and the owner, culminating in an agreement for what it's worth as of April 18 of $5 a square foot, accounting for all these different factors. And now it's a vacant parcel of land with chattels. You can see the chattels are movable storage containers that are just sitting on the site. So in our mind, there's two factors that we need to consider, and I commend the city for addressing the one. But it's also, even if it were legally accessible, if it was a commonly owned property, for example, to your point, this still is kind of a rearage property. It's behind the civic center, it's behind the improvements off Sargent, and that would affect value in our mind. So we have the same 4 comparisons. I have the same comments about them, and I think they're applicable to this property as well. And again, when we look at properties with good frontage, we get into the teens. In that case, just under $14 a square foot. But the properties that are off of main roads, like the subject, we have a range of $6.21 to $9 a square foot. So I won't go through those comparisons again. I'll just summarize by suggesting that all things considered and also considering the landlocked nature, we feel that something at the lower end of that range is more appropriate. And so similar to the agreement for 2018 at $5, we think that's closer in the ballpark. Based on the evidence today, we feel that $5.50 a square foot is more appropriate. And if we apply $5.50 to this parcel, which is 45,518 square feet, so a little bigger than my comparisons, but then the resulting value is $250,000. And I think that sums it up slowly there.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. Matthew, any questions?
No, I don't have any questions. I'm good. Thank you.
So,
No, thank you.
Richard,
Nothing, thanks.
and I have no questions. So that concludes 29. Now, the next one on the docket is 1757 Alice Avenue, vacant industrial. I note that there's no brief submitted by Altus on this one.
Yeah, so if I may, Matthew, Mr. Chairman, we originally appealed it because we had an assumption that it was actually necessary for the operations of 1777 Ellis, which is commonly owned. In fact, we've now reached a settlement on 77 Ellis, and that's where really the adjustment would be made in a case like this. And in fact, it isn't. It's a separately assessed parcel. And when I took another look at it, just as far as the value, I thought that makes sense. And so I think I have authorization to withdraw. It was kind of a confusing response to my email to the owner. But what I'd like to do, just to play it safe, is simply ask for a confirmation.
Okay, we'll have to have Matthew read it into the record first.
Oh, sure. Okay.
Okay, Matthew, read it into the record, please.
Mr. Chairman. The roll number is 0700187500. The address is 1757 Ellis Avenue, and the owner is Elberry Properties Limited. The 2023 assessed value based on a reference date of April 1st, 2021 is $186,000. Do you want me to go through the whole brief or just
You're gonna have to go through the comparisons and
okay, sure, I can go that. Okay, so just information, the property description. Again, this is a vacant industrial parcel of land. It is zone M2 manufacturing. And the land area is 11,360 square feet. Page 2 of my brief, you'll just see a photo of the subject property where it's located on Ellis Avenue and King Street. And you'll just see the parcel outline of where it's located. Page 3 of my brief, you see some zoning information. Again, this is M2, manufacturing general, and you'll just see the description of what that entails. Page 3 of my brief, you'll just see the valuation summary. Again, this is just on land value. And there were no recent sales of this property. Last time we sold was in 2000. Page 5 of my brief, you'll just see some information regarding my subject and the comparable properties. My comparables range in size from 7,285 square feet to 16,337 square feet. Sale dates range from July 16, 2018 to September 22nd, 2020. And the land area rates range from $13.61 square foot to $24.76 square foot. And our model land rate is $16.37 a square foot. On page 6 of my brief, you'll just see comparables 1 and 2. The first one, again, we've spoken to before, which is on Jarvis Avenue. Comparable 2, this is on Archibald Avenue, which would be in the St. Bonix area. You'll see that's situated on Plinkett and Archibald. Comparable 3, this is located on Plinkett. This is actually really close to comparable number 2. And you'll see the other street here, Gerard Street. You'll see where that's located. And comparable 4, this is just located on Dufferin Avenue. You'll see where this is situated. This would be Dufferin. So page 8 of my brief, you'll just see some liability and classification information, just showing the area and again the land value. Page 9 and 10 of my brief. There is a. I'm not going to go too much into this, but there is a sign on the property that they're gaining income from. So I just put the income statement that's showing that they're gaining some income. It's very little income. You can see after expenses and such and property taxes, it's very little income, but they are gaining some income from that sign on the property. And page 10, 11 are just some useful assessment excerpts. That's my presentation.
Thank you very much. Rod, any questions?
No, thanks.
Stella
No, thank you.
and Richard?
None.
And now Rod, you may request confirmation.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. We'd like to request confirmation by 54-1 legislation. The intent is to let the appeal die.
Okay, thank you very much. So the next property is roll number 070-229-10000. And there's no civic address for it. And any preliminary issues on this one?
I don't believe so, no.
Okay, Matthew, you can start with your presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The roll number is 070-229-10000. Again, there is no address for this property. And the owner is Exchange Income Corporation. The 2023 assessed value based on reference date of April 1st, 2021 is $218,000. This property is a vacant industrial parcel. It is zoned M2 Manufacturing General, and the land area is 14,294 square feet. This, again, page 2 of my brief, you'll just see where this parcel is located. This is actually very close to the previous parcels, about 5 Ellendine Road and 29. If you look actually on page 3 of my brief, again, you'll see a zoomed out photo, and I've shown a little red dot just to kind of show where it's situated. So it's literally one property over from 29 or from 5 Ellendine, which we had spoken to previously. So you're obviously familiar with where this is located, again, off of an Ellendine Road. This is zoned M2 Manufacturing General, as I mentioned. And again, we're just assessing the property on land only at $218,000, and there have been no recent sales on this property. Page 6 of my brief, you'll just see again the subject information as well as the comparable properties. We are applying a land rate of $15.25 a square foot for the subject. Comparable one, I've spoken to this one in my previous hearing on this is located on Archibald. If you look at page 7 of my brief, you'll see a photo of it again as I in the previous brief. Very close to the subject property. Sold in January 4th, 2019. Comparable to, this is also, I had spoken to my previous property. This is located on Dufferin Avenue. This one sold at September 22nd, 2020 for $19.22 a square foot. And comparable 3, I had spoken to this previously. So this is located on St. James Avenue, sold in 2017 for $13.53 a square foot. And comparable 4, this is located on Jarvis Avenue. This one sold in 2018 for $14.38 a square foot. Page, well, I think that's all. I think that's the last of my brief I can put there. So yeah, on page 10 of my brief is just some excerpt information. That's my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Rod, any questions?
Just one, thanks, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Harling, again, the comparisons you have are like 1, 2, 3. They're all on major, or they're all fronting onto streets of varying degrees of traffic count. Is that correct?
That would be correct, yes.
And 2, 3 of them are external corners, it says here, for land influence.
I believe that would be 2 of them, I think, are external corners. Comparable 4 and 1.
Okay, that's all my questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Gisela, any questions?
No, good, thank you.
Richard?
No, thank you.
And I have no questions. So Rod, you can start your presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I'm going to keep this very short because it's very similar to the other 2 properties. As Mr. Harling said, it's located in that same little internal area between Sargent and Ellis. On page 6, there's the overhead photo, which Mr. Harling had. The only difference is that at the time of that overhead photo, whenever Google Maps is dated, since that time, you'll see a hangar on the right-hand side, kind of just to the east of the subject. That's been demolished just recently. So the photo was when I was out at the site about a month ago, and it's looking northeast, and you can see that now the subject property, which had been used as parking, is just vacant because there's no building to really require parking from. So we now have this internally located vacant land that's not used for parking either. And so it's the same position, Mr. Chairman. We have our subset of comparisons that I think highlights the difference between the sale prices of sites, which are probably more easily developed when they're on major streets, versus something like this. It's kind of hidden away behind. And I don't think that the values into teams are appropriate for parcels like this. So we have that same subset range, 621 to 899 square foot. That's what we think is appropriate. Same range that we looked at the other properties. In this case, though, because this is a smaller property, to the point made earlier about economies of scale, I'm looking at something at the higher end of the range. I'm actually a bit beyond the range. So I'm at $10 a square foot. But I think that's, I wouldn't feel comfortable with anything higher than that. And I think that's appropriate for the April 21 value of $10 a square foot. So on page 15, if we apply that to the 14,294 square feet, we would have a revised value of 143,000. And that's it.
Thank you very much. Matthew, any questions?
I have no questions. Thank you.
And Gisela?
In terms of your comparisons, the second one on St. James, isn't it 1353 per square foot?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So what I mentioned at the beginning, between those four comparisons, the reason I included that is because when I look at the sale prices of various properties, I see a difference based on location. When we have something internally located like this, it's typically going to be less, all other things being equal. And so I've included St. James to show, from my position, when you have something on a higher traffic location that is likely going to be developed, it commands a higher price. And that's basically the crux of my argument, is that I find that the city's comparisons, although they're generally well thought out, the main difference is they're on major roads. They could be more easily developed, and therefore they're going to command a higher value.
And you're recommending $10.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Richard?
No, thanks.
And I have no questions. So that concludes this property. The next property on the docket is roll number 070020109000. And Matthew, you can start your presentation. I understand there's a preliminary issue on this one.
I'm not even sorry. Is this the Via Rail property, Matt?
No, this is I believe this one because let me just confirm. So we roll number 070020109000. That is the Dula Color Services Limited property. It's not the Via Rail one though. No.
Yeah. Okay. This after the assessor's done, I'll be asking for confirmation.
Okay. I'll start. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The roll number is 070020109000. This property has no address, and the owner is Dula Color Services Limited. The 2023 assessed value based on a reference date for 1st, 2021 is $48,000. This property is vacant industrial parcel of land. It is zoned M2 general, and its land area is 12,934 square feet. Page 2 of my brief, you'll just see where this property is located. I've put a little red dot where it's located. It's right behind this property on Bradford Street, who happens to be the owner, the same owner of this parcel in front of the building. The one, I guess it would be to the east of the subject. Again, you'll see where it's situated. Page 2 of your, you'll just see the zoning. Again, M2 manufacturing general. Page 3 of my brief, you'll just see the valuation summary of $40,000. And below, you'll just see the sales history. There's no recent sales on this property. Page 5 of my brief, you'll just see some information regarding my comparables. We're applying a land rate of $3.71 a square foot. My land comparables range in $9 to $19.22 a square foot. 7,000 square feet to 22,000 square feet, subject again being 12,000. And you'll see some land influences below that. Pages 6 and 7 and 8, you'll just see some photos of my comparable properties. Comparable 1 is on Oak Point Highway, again 2017 sale, and comparables 2 and 3 and 4 actually have already been mentioned in previous properties. Page 8 just some information about classification liability, and page 9 just municipal staff excerpts. Thank you. Thank you. That's my presentation.
Thank you. And Rod, any questions?
No questions.
Gisela?
No questions. Thank you.
And Richard? Thanks. And I have no questions. So Rod?
Yeah, again, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to request confirmation via section 54.1. Very similar circumstance to the first property I requested confirmation on.
Okay, thank you very much. Now we're at Marcelo's property.
Yep.
So
He's waiting in the lobby.
oh, well, should we just deal with Rod first? Does that make it easier?
Yeah, it's quick.
Okay. Okay, Matthew, we're going to skip to item number 7 on the docket. Roll number 12-060-645-100. And you may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, the roll number is 120-606-45100. This property has no address. The owner of this property is the city of Winnipeg, and it is currently being leased by the Italian Canadian League of Manitoba Incorporated. 2023 assessed value based on the reference date of April 1st, 2021 is $221,000. Property type again is a vacant industrial parcel. It is zoned M2 manufacturing, and its land area is 98,869 square feet. Page 2 of my brief, you'll see a photo of the subject property. I've put a little red dot to indicate the actual subject. It's just above the parcel below, and you can see where it's located on Wilkes Avenue. The property below is owned by the Italian Canadian League of Manitoba Incorporated. As I said, the one property above it it's owned by the city, but it's being leased out by the owner below. Page 3 of my brief, you'll just see the zoning information. Again, it's M2. Again, page 3 or 4, you'll just see the properties just being assessed on land only, and there are no recent sales of this property. Page 5 of my brief, you'll just see the information regarding my land sale comparables. Subject again being 90,816 square feet, zone M2. You'll see some of the land influences we have, sewer to water, rail line, park, or some of the influences we have in this property. And we're applying a land rate of $2.24 a square foot. My comparables range on size of 197,000 square feet to, 42,000 square feet up to 197,000 square feet. You'll see the zonings of each of the properties, as well as some of the influences as well. Sales range from date of 2019 to November 20th, 2020. And the sale price per square foot range from $2.28 a square foot up to $6.28 a square foot. Page 6 of my brief, you'll just see a photo of comparable 1. This is located on Logan Avenue. It's situated on Logan and Ryan Street there. So comparable 2, this is located on St. Bob's Industrial Park. It's on Black Diamond Boulevard, and you'll see a photo of the subject property. Apologize, I didn't have a better zoomed out photo, but this is just the shape of the property. And page 8 of my brief, you'll see comparable number 3. This is located on Oak Point Highway. You'll see where it's situated on Oak Point Highway, and you'll see the parcel shape of the property slightly irregular. And comparable 4, this is located on Derby Avenue, which would be close to Mission Street in St. Bob's Industrial Park, or sorry, in the St. Bob's area, not St. Bob's Industrial Park. And you'll see the outline of this property. Again, this one's slightly smaller than subject, 42,000 square feet. Again, and all these sales too are fairly recent sales from 2019 to 2020. And page 9 of my brief, you'll just see the classification liability information and the current value we're assessing the property parcel at. And page 10 and 11 are just some municipal assessment information. That's the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Rod, any questions?
Questions, thank you.
Val,
No questions.
Richard,
No questions?
and I have no questions. So that concludes this roll number.
And it's, I'd just like to ask for 54 months. So it's still, that's fine. Similar circumstance, part of a economic holding that's being addressed in the.
Right. Okay, thank you. So you're done and we will take a 5-minute recess. Reconvene the hearing. And Jason, can you swear in the applicant?
Mr. Applicant, please state your full name. Marcel Navarro. Do you affirm that the evidence you are about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. You may be seated.
Thank you very much. The next item on the docket is roll number 12-06-06-45-100. Are there any preliminary issues on this? Oh, sorry. Roll number 12-09-763-1800.
That is correct.
Any preliminary issues on this one? Marcel? No. Matthew?
Preliminary issues.
Okay, Matthew, you can start your presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The roll number is 1209-763-1800, and this property has no address. The owner is the City of Winnipeg, and the property is a city lease for Via Rail Canada Incorporated. The 2023 assessed value based on reference date of April 1st, 2021 is $542,000. Some information regarding the property. Again, this is a vacant industrial parcel of land, and it is zoned M2 manufacturing general. And the land area is 154,691 square feet. Now, if you go to page 2 of my brief, you'll see outline of the subject. It's very unique property. Again, it's a via rail line. At the above photo, I've highlighted in red to show the exact parcel outline. And at the bottom of page 2, you'll just kind of see more of a zoomed in photo of the rail line. So it's this is the just to kind of show the outline of how the area is being assessed. Page 3 of my brief, you'll just see the zoning. Again, this is M2 zoning, manufacturing general, and you'll just see that it's the zoning for the subject. Page 4 of my brief, you'll just see the valuation of the property and the land value at $542,000. And there were have been no recent sales on this property. Page 5 of my brief, you'll just see some information regarding the subject as well as my comparables. Again, the subject, $154,000, 681 square feet, M2 manufacturing generally zoned. Some of the land uses we have on this parcel are it's near a park. It's obviously a rail line. Obviously, it has no railing or no water, and obviously it's in the irregular shape, as you can see when you saw from the photo. So those are some of the influences we have on this. So we're using a land rate of $3.50 a square foot. Now my comparables on pages 6, 7, and 8. These comparables would be similar in size to the subject and zoning. However, obviously these are not rail line sales. So these are, these comparables would be more low. These comparables were chosen more so based on the similar size to the parcel. You'll see the sale dates range from September 17th, 2019 to November 2nd, 2020. The land rates range in sale from, or the sale price per square foot range from $5.36 a square foot. I'm sorry, $2.28 a square foot up to $6.28 a square foot. And again, as I said, page 6, 7, and 8, you'll see the comparables. Again, as I noted, as I stated, they're similar in size. However, obviously they're not rail lines, so they're not the same in that sense. So there's no sales of rail lines such as that. Comparable number, or sorry, page 9 of my brief, you'll just see some classification liability information again, and the value at $542,000. And page 10 through 12, you'll just see some Municipal Assessment Act as well as some Municipal Assessment Act excerpt information. That's the presentation. Thank you.
And that concludes your presentation.
That is correct. Yes, that's the conclusion. Thank you.
Thank you. Marcelo, any questions?
Yes, I do. Looking at your comparable number one, that is Oak Point Highway. Now, this is Oak Point just before it turns into King Edward Street. So this is the main thoroughfare, correct?
That would be correct.
Okay. And this parcel does not, or does have water frontage and sewer frontage, correct?
Comparable one. I did not confirm that, so I cannot. I'm not aware of that. So.
I'm looking at the property record myself, but I don't know if you're near a computer, but you could confirm this as well.
I don't have it up at the moment, but I could. If you need a minute here, I could double check here. What up here? Number 4. I can see I can see water coming through. I don't see sewer. So, but I do see the water access, having water access. So.
The information that we're looking at is taken from the city of assessment site. So that's where we're getting our information from.
I see water, but again, I'll have to take a look at
okay.
depth. So
that's not a big issue at this point. And the same goes for comparable to this also fronts Logan Avenue, and this is an industrial park area. You can confirm that there are services in place as well for this property.
Again, I'd have to. Again, I have to take a look more into this. I don't have access to that screen at the moment, so I'll have to confirm. But if you've seen it again, I'll have to take a look after to confirm. So, but if you've got it on the website, I don't dispute that. So.
And comparable number 3, that is on 65 High Avenue. This one also is surrounded by 2 properties that have service. This one does not, but basically it's right there at the, I don't know what you would call it, the service gate. So it's essentially almost fronting Oak Point Highway as well, correct?
It is close to Oak Point. Yeah, exactly. Yes, exactly.
Yeah, we're talking maybe a couple 100 feet of that. And lastly, your comparable number 4. While I was doing my online research, again, this is the City of Winnipeg site. This one also has water frontage and sewer frontage. And yet it says no sewer, no water. So I was kind of puzzled about that.
I mean, I have access to the water and sewer lines and I can't see anything on there. So I'll have to research that. So.
Okay. Maybe we look at different information. However, this is part of Black Diamond, correct? This is phase 2 of St. Boniface Industrial Park, correct?
That is correct, yes.
Okay. Now, the last question that I have pertains to the set of comparables in general in comparison to the subject. The subject is really not in a prime industrial area, correct? This is not generally where people go to set up industrial properties.
It would not be in a typical industrial location. I don't dispute that. So
and just adjacent to that, can you confirm that there is a commercial zone along Pembina Highway, but this is really not part of it, correct?
That is correct, yes.
Okay. And we'll also confirm that there is there are essentially no roads that go into this area, correct?
Not to my knowledge. Again, I haven't inspected, so but from what I can see the photo, you're right. I don't disagree.
Okay. I can comment that there is a kind of, I don't know what you would call it, a service road or something like that. Which is just a narrow dirt road that you can access the service center, but that is about it. Those are my questions.
Thank you very much. Gisela, any questions?
Yes, I'm just wondering, in terms of the fact that this is a lease from the city of Winnipeg, how relevant do you think some of these influences are? That you have?
Well, obviously, we would still, regardless, we would still, you know, if there, even if it's not a city-owned property, we would still assess it with, like, you know, influences, and we would, you know, if there are influences in the property, we would still put them down or mention them. So I still feel like they're relevant. Any property that has, you know, influences, whether it's near a park or rail line or water, no water, we still, you know, mention it, obviously. So.
Thank you.
Thank you. Richard?
Nothing, thanks.
And I have no questions. So Marcelo, you can make your presentation.
Okay. The property has no civic address. This is roll 1209-763-1800. And this is via rail. I believe there is a city of Winnipeg lease in here. I didn't mention it because I think via rail also leases this property. So the site area that we have is 154,649 square feet. If there is a small difference, it's simply a rounding issue. So the information that we get is online, accessible by the public via the City of Winnipeg's assessment site and the planning department website. So both these websites give public information, and there are obviously some rounding errors that cause the difference. So the 2023 realty assessment is 542,000. What we're asking for is a reduction to 315,000. On page 3, I'll try and shorten this out. The intended use of the report, the intended user, you can look at that at your own time. I was inside this property recently. See the scope of the work on page 4 and hypothetical conditions and assumptions and limiting conditions on page 5. On page 6, you can see an overhead map of the area. Doesn't really give you a good idea of where we're talking about, simply because of the way that this area is carved up, but it's in that general vicinity. And again, we have a possibly a small difference in terms of the size, and that is, again, simply a rounding error. The site does have M2 zoning. Highest and best use is the continued use as a railway. Currently, there's nothing in place that would allow for multi-residential or any other type of use on this site. The analysis is for April 1, 2021. That is the reference date. And in terms of the approaches to value, obviously we're using the direct comparison approach. So on page 10 is where we have our set of sales. So we have a set of 4 sales with dates between 2017 and 2020. These are vacant industrial. They are larger lots, and that is, I believe, what the assessor is also looking for is the size of the property more so than anything else. They have M2 zoning and M1 zoning. And for the most part, they are located in similar areas from both our parts. So I've got 2 from the St. Boniface Industrial Park area, 1 from Oak Point, which we have in common, and 1 from the area called Tyne Tees. Again, these are all vacant industrial lands. So we have an average of $5.48 per square foot, a median of $5.73 per square foot. So our base is $5.48 per square foot. Now we're adjusting for location and servicing. As you can see, the comparables that we've looked at all have those services in place. So they have the water, sewer, the drainage, the streets, those are all in place. Possibly not Oak Point, but the services are right up to them. Now, in terms of servicing costs, this is where we differ. So in the past, we've kind of done this type of thing where we've just said, okay, because of services, because of this, it's going to be at this level. But really, we're not trying to quantify it. We're just trying to do a hypothetical estimate of some type. That's best case scenario judgment call. I don't know what you'll call it, but that's generally what we did. This time around, what we did was we actually took a look at what servicing costs were in place. So based on a best case scenario, and this is the lower side of the end, we're looking at about $3.44 per square foot or $150,000 per acre. So that is why we've adjusted the value downwards, the location of the service. Once again, we've gone with a value of $2.04 per square foot. So on page 11, you'll see the calculation, $154,649 and $2.04 per square foot. That gives us a rounded value of $315,000. Now, you'll note on top of that calculation, you'll see the employment cluster areas. So the city of Winnipeg actually took time to do an in-depth study of employment in commercial lands in Winnipeg. So where this map comes out of is that study. And that study in this particular map, I think, is an important point to make. So the areas that are highlighted there by letters are essentially the industrial zones inside Winnipeg. And industrial zones versus employment zones or employment areas, just semantics, I guess, at that point. I think from a planning perspective, what they like to refer to them as is employment areas. But they are essentially speaking about industrial zones. So those are the areas that are typical for Winnipeg. As you can see from our subject, located along Pembina Highway, it's not in one of these areas. And this is a point that I wanted to make because we are both taking from sales in areas that are typically employment areas or industrial zones. And we're trying to come up with a hypothetical value for this area. Now, this area not being a typical industrial zone or employment area, not having those services in place, in our opinion, would require a fairly significant adjustment. And that's why we made that significant of an adjustment. Now, going to the next page, you can see our comparables along Camille Sis, comparables 1 through 4. And over to the next page, you'll see the Canadian Cost Guide. The Canadian Cost Guide is an all-this publication. It's done on an annual basis, and it comes from our costing team in Toronto. It's a pretty in-depth study at development costs on a per square foot basis. And you can see the different costing centers. You'll note that Winnipeg is one of those costing centers. And if we look at, I believe it is page 11 of the study, you'll note that in Winnipeg, the industrial rate per acre is between 120 and 220,000. Now we've gone with Oh, sorry, that's the public sector. We're actually supposed to be looking at private sector on page 10. Okay, so we have site servicing on page 12 of 150,000 to 215,000 for Winnipeg. Sorry, that's something else. Sorry, we lost the place here. It is 120,000 per and $220,000 per acre. So we've gone with a value of $150,000 per acre, or $3.44 per square foot. So we're relying on that information to give us an idea of what exactly it would cost to service these areas. And again, I stress that we're taking comparables of properties that have those places, those services in place. So they have the streets, they have the drainage, they have the sewer, they have the water, and all of my comparables essentially have all of that in place, whereas the subject does not. And also it is not in the typical area for industrial development. So there is some weight that we have to put on the fact that this is not the best area, or at least in our opinion, it's inferior to the comparables that we have. And they're mostly coming from industrial park areas. So that's my presentation. Those are questions.
Thank you. Matthew, any questions?
I'm just curious. I was looking at the cost guide. So I was trying to follow. Where is the Winnipeg cert? Where is the one of the $150,000 you had stated? I'm just curious. I can't seem to find it. I was just curious, just for personal reference.
Okay. So where it says public sector and site servicing, and I apologize because this wasn't numbered according to the entire brief, but you'll see that there is a page 11 and a page 12.
Yes, I see that. Yeah, I see that. Yeah.
Okay, so you'll see where Winnipeg is in the green.
Yes.
Okay, and in the red shaded areas where it says servicing and highways,
Oh, yes, yes, yes.
about halfway down, you'll see industrial per acre.
Oh, I see 120.
Yeah.
So I guess it ranges from 120 to 220. I was just curious, any reason why 150, I guess, or not? I'm just curious.
But yeah, I mean, I think it's on the, I mean, to put it mildly, I think if we had a much larger parcel, like 20 acres, I think we'd probably be looking at around $120,000 per acre, simply because of the economies of scale. We should have technically gone with something, I think, a little higher given the small size of this property. So I don't know, at some point we would have come down to almost zero or a negative value. So in that sense, so that's why we only adjusted it so far. And really, I mean, when you're talking about this being brownfields or brownfield development, often in those scenarios, you're looking at negative values when you're looking at the sale of those properties, because they involve so much in terms of redeveloping those properties, not in the sense of just putting in services, but there's also those environmental issues that come along with brownfields. So I think from our perspective, we were actually being mild in terms of the adjustment that we made on it.
That's all the questions I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Giselle?
No questions for me.
Richard?
Nope, nothing.
And I have no questions. Does any party want to do a summation?
No, I think I'm just rely on the evidence and then let the board make a decision on the evidence.
Marcel?
I think we're good.
Okay, we have heard all of the items scheduled today, and this hearing is now adjourned. Thank you very much, everyone.